Welcome, everyone. You are joining us today for a webinar titled Successful Pretrial Strategies in Rural Communities, Small Town Solutions to Solve Big Town Problems. We are very happy to have you here today. You are joining myself. I'm Christina Bryant. I'm a visiting fellow with BJA, and I have the pleasure today of bringing to you Hannah Turner, who is the Senior Project Manager for University of North Carolina's Criminal Justice Innovation Lab, and Hillary Hartoin, who is the Director of Cass County, Indiana Court and Pretrial Services. They will both have an opportunity to introduce themselves in a little bit more detail, but what I would say to you about Hannah and Hillary is these ladies are both working in rural communities. They are both working in pretrial or working with the pretrial phase of our systems, and they have some information that should be relevant to you if you are living and working in a rural community. And just as a kickoff point, we want to acknowledge that over 400 people registered for the webinar. And that to me sends a very clear signal about the demand for information that is specific to rural communities. And we certainly hope we meet your expectations today. What we will be working through is just a quick introduction of what OJP and BJA is, just in case you are not familiar with them. We're going to spend just a few minutes bringing you into an understanding of why we are focused on rural, why that is important. And then we have these two case studies that we want to share. So first, we're going to hear from Hannah at UNC. Have an open question and answer period as Hannah at the end of Hannah speaking, and then we'll hear from Hillary and have a question and answer session with her as well. You will see as you have joined us that the chat is present, but the chat is actually one way that allows us to send information to you. It's actually the question and answer feature where you will submit questions, and at the end of each of their speaking parts, we'll stop and review those and present to each of them questions that seem to get everybody's attention. Again, we appreciate your time today and are ready to start really from that place of making sure you understand who OJP is and why we are here today. So the Office of Justice Programs primarily provides that grant funding, training, research, and statistics to our criminal justice community. They are one of three grant-making components that are part of the Department of Justice, which is our parent agency. The DOJ additionally has the Office of Violence Against Women and the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. Looking on the right, you see the agencies associated with OJP, and the ones that are in our criminal justice field that we tend to be most familiar with are BJA, that grant-making organization, BJS, who does a lot of statistics, the Bureau of Justice Statistics. They often provide us statistics around jail, prisons, probation, pretrial that are useful to us in understanding from a national and state level what's going on. And then you have the National Institute of Justice that does a great deal of research. Specifically, BJA's mission is to provide leadership and services in grant administration and criminal justice policy development to support state, local, and tribal justice strategies to achieve safer communities. And we do that under the direction of Carlton Moore, who is our director. How do we do that? We do that by investing in communities through the grants that you often associate with BJA. We do that in sharing knowledge across our systems and through engagement. We want to convene, we want to connect, we want individuals to have an opportunity to consult experts. We have this quick poll for you. This would be helpful to us to have an understanding if you are coming from a community that is under 50,000, over 50,000, maybe you identify more as a frontier rural community or other. Maybe none of those are representative of you. While that poll's going on, I want to share with you what a visiting fellow does, because this may be of interest to you in the future. So visiting fellows is a grant opportunity that BJA has out every year. And particularly, it comes out in focused areas. In the year I applied, pretrial was one of those areas. It gives you an opportunity as a fellow to be present and a part of a decision-making body at that policy level, and it gives them an opportunity to bring practitioners into the federal system and gives them a little bit better understanding of what's going on from our practitioner perspective. Thank you for engaging our poll. It looks like 39% of our participants today identify with being under, less than 50,000 in population. 30% at that more 2% at Frontier, and then 29%, we did not capture the right definition for you, which is fine. Again, we are glad you're here. So let's just talk about rural. Why is rural important? Why are we setting aside time to talk about rural? And it is because we believe from a strength-based approach that rural communities have something to offer our systems and our criminal justice systems that seems a little different. Our relationships across our community members and our justice systems personnel tend to be stronger. We are more aware of each other. We interact on not just a professional level, but also a social level more regularly. There is power and strength in our professional networks in our rural communities because of those stronger or those closer interrelationships that we have. We are much more self-reliant, and that is a strongly held value among us as community members. But with that, we do kind of recognize family systems. We honor those. We are neighborly to each other, and that means that some of our sources of support can be stronger. When we come together as a system and we identify stakeholders, faith-based communities, faith-based organizations are typically at the table, which stands again to be a little bit different in a rural community. It is not abnormal for our faith-based organizations to be some of the fabric of what's providing social supports in our community. And again, that's a strength. And then lastly, there seems to be a strong sense of civic duty and patriotism in our rural communities that we can work from. Some statistics that I hope continue to have you sit a little straighter and a little prouder of working or living in rural is that 97% of our America's land mass is classified as rural. Rural people are the stewards of our food, our energy, our water, our life essential resources. 1 in 5 people in our country live in rural. 1 in 4 are persons of color, and those persons of color are stabilizing or even growing our rural populations in many places in the United States. Rural areas have higher rates of entrepreneurship, and actually we have a 5-year survival rate of entrepreneurial that is much higher than our urban counterparts. Rural locales are primary home for manufacturing, energy, agriculture, forestry. These different sectors typically drive wealth and are the foundation of our economy. Nearly 1 in 4 of our veterans return from active military careers to reside in our rural communities, and more than 1 in 4 Americans say that they would prefer to live in a rural community. And I think we saw some of that movement through COVID. So why, from a justice perspective, are we homing in, particularly in this pretrial area? I think most of us who are attending today have certainly heard the statistics that if you look at our jail populations, almost 70% of those populations tend to be pretrial. But if you dig a little deeper and you break apart those jail populations by size of community, our rural jails tend to have an increasing population, where our urban jails tend to have a lower one. So that first bullet there says jail populations have grown by 27% in rural counties and 7% in our small and mid-sized metropolitan areas. In contrast, our large urban counties, they've declined by 18%. We're not suggesting the cause and effect here, but certainly this is something that should pique our curiosity, and we should start looking at the reasons behind this and what that means for our rural communities. The second bullet, in 2019, rural county jail incarceration rates were more than double those of urban county. Again, the impacts of those, as you know, from a pretrial perspective, are massive. They have longer term impacts on the individual as well as the community. So that is why we are here today and interested in talking about rural and our pretrial systems. So it is time to turn it over for our first case study. Hannah, I would love to see you turn your camera on, welcome yourself or introduce yourself, and then just please start sharing.
Yes, so my name is Hannah Turner. I am the Senior Project Manager at the UNC School of Government Criminal Justice Innovation Lab. And I'll say a little bit more about what the lab does in a second, but what I personally do is I manage sort of the day-to-day on a variety of different research projects in the criminal justice space, including a lot of past and current work in rural jurisdictions. And before this, I was a social worker. So I worked with lots of different folks who are involved in the criminal justice system in one way or another in my past social work career. But today I'm going to talk a little bit about the use of jail data in rural pretrial policymaking. So I'll walk you all through an example of a project that we did where we partnered with a rural jurisdiction in North Carolina and did a jail data analysis for them and the outcomes of that analysis. But first, I will say a little bit more about the Criminal Justice Innovation Lab for those of you who may not be familiar. So the lab seeks to promote a fair and effective criminal justice system, economic prosperity, and public safety through an evidence-based approach to criminal justice policy. We are a nonpartisan, non-advocacy organization. Really, one of our main focuses is to be responsive to the needs of stakeholders, particularly our stakeholders here in North Carolina. We do focus on front-end criminal justice issues, which means that we do a lot of work in the pretrial space and also a lot of work in topics like policing and indigent defense and other areas. But generally, our work takes three forms. The first is foundational research, where we provide information to help people understand things like best practices or relevant legal rules to help guide policy. The second is pilot projects, where we work with jurisdictions to develop and implement solutions to issues that they have identified in their communities. And then the third is model tools, where we can take all of this information from research from these pilot projects and create off-the-shelf resources that can be adapted for jurisdictions all over North Carolina and jurisdictions all across the country. So that's a little bit about us. And of course, being based in North Carolina, we do a lot of work with rural communities. And the example that I'm going to focus on today kind of falls into this pilot project category. But first, I'll sort of talk generally about the use of jail data in rural communities and something that we have come across in a lot of our work, which is that stakeholders in rural areas often don't have enough reliable information about their jail population over time to use it in the policymaking process. So jail data is a really important source of information. Like we were just talking about, many of the people who are in jail are being held pre-trial. It can give you a really good snapshot of things that are going on in your pre-trial system. And sometimes when we talk to folks initially, they say, oh, well, I've got plenty of information about my jail because I get a daily population report from my sheriff's office, or I can go online and I'm able to see who is in the jail at any given time. And that's really helpful for day-to-day work as a pretrial practitioner, as a judge, whatever it may be. But when you're looking to make policy decisions, or when you're looking to maybe identify areas for improvement, you probably don't want to make those decisions based on a day or a week or even a month of your jail data. You likely are going to be interested in looking at years of information to really see trends over time, to see patterns, to see the difference between a one-off situation that happened for a few months versus something that's coming back year after year. And so that's where this over time piece really comes in, is that we found that a lot of folks just don't have access to those years and years of data that can be the most helpful when you're trying to make policy decisions. But while I say that that's something that we've encountered, I don't want to make assumptions about folks here today. So we do have another poll question for you. And that's asking about how much information you have access to about your jurisdiction's jail population. Is it that daily population report that I just described, or maybe you get something from the sheriff every day about who's in the jail? Maybe you get quarterly or semi-annual actual reports that show cumulative trends in the jail population, like paper reports. Sometimes folks have dashboards or other reporting software that can show you in real time different trends about your population, or maybe it's none of the above or other. So I'll give you just a few seconds to answer that poll. And then we'll see what we've got. All right, so what we're seeing here is 52% of y'all said that you have that daily population report access that I was talking about. We do have about 10% in both regular reporting and dashboards, where you maybe do get that regularly updated information. And then we have the remaining 21 in none of the above or other. So yeah, it seems like many of you are in a similar situation as our partners in Columbus County, North Carolina were. So let me tell you a little bit more about them. We started working with Columbus County in 2021. You see on this map where Columbus County is. It's where that purple star is, right down on the border with South Carolina. And we started working with them as part of the North Carolina Rural Jail Project. And so this was actually an opportunity where we put out a call for applications and invited rural jurisdictions to apply. We said, hey, we'll do a jail data analysis for a county that's interested in learning more about their pretrial system. And it was through the application process that we were able to learn a little more about the communities and a little bit more about what they were interested to learn about. And in Columbus County, they had a very specific concern. Some of their stakeholders had a gut feeling, which is so often how these kind of changes start, is that somebody has a gut feeling that something is going on or something's not happening effectively, and then it all goes from there. So there was a gut feeling, particularly among their elected district attorney, that they were incarcerating a fair number of people on really low-level offenses, that those people were getting booked into the jail. They were getting really low bonds because they were low-level offenses. So they would pay those bonds and they would be right back out very quickly. And their concern, they called this sort of churn in the jail population, right? A lot of turnover, folks coming in and folks coming right back out. And the concern was, in a very rural and under-resourced community, their concern is about using resources effectively. And they didn't feel like this was an effective use of the jail, to have people, coming in, coming right back out when there maybe wasn't necessarily a risk to public safety. And they were using a lot of resources. It takes a lot of time and resources to book somebody into the jail, especially if they're not going to stay for very long. So this was their gut feeling, but they didn't necessarily have the data to back it up. And I'll tell you a little bit more about Columbus County just for context. So about 50,000 people live in Columbus County, North Carolina. About 21% of those folks are living in poverty, which is about 10 points higher than the average in North Carolina. And then, like many rural jurisdictions, even though the population isn't very large, the landmass of the county is very large. So there are 100 counties in North Carolina, and Columbus County is the third largest overall. So the population is very dispersed. So like I said, we partnered with them. We knew what their primary concern was. And what we did with Columbus County and what we do really with all our partners is we started by asking some questions about what they were really interested to learn in their jail data. And I'm going to walk through some of those questions with you all today, both to share what happened in Columbus, but also maybe to give you some ideas of how you might use this type of information in your jurisdiction. So the first question, and maybe the most simple, is what am I interested in learning from jail data? It can be really helpful before you start going down the road of trying to pull data and trying to analyze data to really think for a second about what you're wanting to learn. Is there a specific issue? Like in Columbus, they already had something in mind, or maybe it's just wanting to learn more about the jail population generally. In Columbus, what they were interested to learn really boiled down to some pretty basic information. They wanted to know who was in the jail in terms of things like demographics. They wanted to know why they were there, so what they were charged with. And then they wanted to know how long they were staying. And even though that is relatively simple, basic booking information, like many of you, they had never seen this information over time before. And we found that this kind of information about the jail population can really lay the groundwork for lots of different conversations about policy solutions. So that's where we started, is the question of what am I interested in learning from the jail? The next question here is, what information will I need to answer my questions? So this is really getting at what information is already available from your jail. What we've also found is that, you hear the word data analysis. I already said up front, I was a social worker. I certainly didn't think that I would have a job that had anything to do with data analysis. That seemed way out of my wheelhouse. But what we found is that a lot of times you don't need complex information to be able to do really strong data analysis about your jail population. What we pull is usually basic booking information that pretty much any sheriff's office and any jail is going to keep track of. We're pulling things like when somebody was booked, why they were booked in terms of like the charge description or the statute number, when they were released, if they were pretrial or if they were sentenced, and why they were released in terms of did they pay a bond or were their conditions of release changed, things like that. So we're really talking basic booking information. And we've been able to pull that in many jurisdictions, really in some ways starting with a lot of this work in Columbus. And it found that that basic booking information can answer a lot of questions. But I do want to be upfront that it cannot answer all of your questions potentially. So this part B is really, is the jail already collecting the information I need? If not, what do they need to collect? This is really where the strength of a smaller and a rural community can come in handy, because you know your sheriff, you know the other stakeholders in your jurisdiction. And when it comes down to it, jail data, at least typically, of course, our experience coming from North Carolina, these are locally controlled data sets. You don't have to go to the state capitol, email somebody that you've never met before, try to pull a data set that you hope you'll get many months from now. You can work directly with folks in your community to say, hey, what are you guys collecting over there at the jail? How are you collecting the information? And would it be able to answer the questions that we have? One example of maybe a question that your jail data couldn't answer right away is, for example, a lot of times folks are interested in the proportion of people in their jail who might have mental health or substance use needs. And in all likelihood, that's not going to be in the kind of basic booking information that we often pull for jail data projects. That might be protected health information. It might belong to a private vendor if your jail contracts with somebody else for health services. So you see now that there are kind of layers to how complex the data request might be. And so you do need to think ahead of time to make sure that your jail really has access to that information. But there are also situations where maybe the jail isn't collecting the data you need right now, or maybe they're not collecting it reliably, but they could if you had a conversation about it. I think one of the best examples here could be, let's say that you're interested in knowing the proportion of people coming into your jail who are unhoused, right? Pretty much every jail has an address field where they're trying to type in people's home addresses when they're being booked in. So let's say, though, that right now, your jail has never really thought about that before, and every deputy is entering information differently. When somebody comes in and says that they don't have a place to stay, maybe one deputy is typing in homeless in the address bar, maybe another deputy would be typing in the address of a shelter, maybe another deputy would be typing in, oh, well, just give me your parents' address, just give me an address that I can put in the system, right? So everybody's entering the information differently. And if you tried to pull that, you wouldn't get a good sense of who in your jail is actually unhoused. But through a conversation with your sheriff and with your local stakeholders, if it's like, this is an area that we're all interested in, maybe we can ask that the deputies all put this in the same way. Maybe we can ask that everybody types in homeless in the address field if somebody comes in and says that they don't have a permanent home. And so then later on, you will be able to pull consistent information about this issue if it's something that's important to your community. So all hope is not lost if right this second the jail is not, meeting your needs in terms of the information that's really important to your jurisdiction. There are conversations that can happen that can potentially help things move in the right direction if there's an area that you really want to learn more about. But in Columbus, we were lucky. Their questions really could be answered by some of the jail data that we're used to pulling, just basic booking information. This last question that I'll talk about a little bit is this idea of, will I need a partner to help analyze the jail data? So in Columbus, of course, the answer was yes. That's why they applied to the project that we were doing, is because they did need some help analyzing the jail data. And of course, that's common across rural jurisdictions. You don't necessarily have a criminal justice data analyst or somebody on staff who can do this kind of work directly in your community. So the plug that I want to give essentially is that there are opportunities out there, especially for rural jurisdictions, to partner with other agencies or other entities to do this kind of work if it's something that's of interest to you. Of course, as somebody who works at a university, I'll say universities can be a place to start. Places with criminal justice departments, sociology departments. This is a really interesting area of research for a lot of academics out there. And folks might be really interested to help you on your path. The other thing that you might consider is that while your county or your jurisdiction might not have somebody who works in criminal justice data, they might have someone who works in data generally. Particularly one area where there's more sort of data analyst folks is in things like public health, like departments of public health. And someone doesn't necessarily need to know about criminal justice data to do this type of work. They just need to be able to understand large data sets, and they need to be able to get some direction from you about exactly what you're looking for and the language of the criminal justice system and things like that. But one thing that might help if you are sort of going down this path in your jurisdiction is something that you did get as part of your reminder email right before the webinar was actually a link to a resource. It's called Core Jail and Court Data Analyses for Improving Local Pretrial Systems. It'll be dropped in the chat for you all. But essentially what that is that's a little packet that has a generalized version of all of the core jail and court data analyses that we usually do when we are working with jurisdictions. And so this might be a helpful place to start if you're kind of looking at that question number one. What am I trying to answer about my, what am I trying to learn about from my jail data? Or this question, if you're trying to approach a partner and you don't really know how to explain to them, hey, this is what we're looking for, this is something we might be interested in, this packet might be a helpful place for you to start to kind of understand the landscape of what kind of analyses that you can get out of that kind of booking information that I talked about before. All right. So again, in this instance, we were the partner in Columbus County. We did their jail data analysis for them. And I want to tell you a little bit more about what we found. So this first slide is showing bookings and releases over time for the 3 years that we analyzed their data. Really, the important thing to see here is that these lines are almost exactly the same. So for pretty much every month, the number of people who were booked into the jail was almost the same as the number of people who were released. And this does speak to their feeling that there was a lot of turnover, a lot of churn in the jail. But that's also not necessarily surprising, right? Jails by nature are places that people are coming in and coming out very frequently. But the second piece of information is something that really surprised some of our stakeholders in the group. So this is looking at bookings by highest charge for 3 years of jail data. And when we use the term highest charge, what we mean is that when we look at a booking, we're looking at the most serious offense within that booking and categorizing it from there. Because, you can have a booking where you have a firearms charge, but then you also have a bunch of traffic offenses. But we usually want to categorize things based on the most serious offense. So we're looking at this by highest charge, and we see that over 3 years in their jail, 34% of bookings were for highest charge felony offenses. Then 40% were for highest charge misdemeanor offenses. When you add up the non-traffic misdemeanors, which are that gold color, that 29%, and the orange, the traffic misdemeanors, 11% of the bookings into their jail were solely for traffic misdemeanors. The highest charge was a traffic misdemeanor. And then finally, maybe something that they didn't expect that we found when we did this analysis for them was the 25% of bookings, the quarter of all bookings into their jail over 3 years that were solely for failure to appear. So these aren't even instances where somebody, let's say, gets picked up on a new charge and they happen to realize, okay, this person has an old failure to appear, and they get booked for that as well. These are instances where the only booking, the only charge in that booking was for failure to appear. And this, of course, is something that might resonate with many of you in rural jurisdictions. The issue they have in Columbus County, like I said previously, very large geographically, one courthouse somewhere in the middle of the county, no public transportation. And so they have a significant issue with people missing court. And then that reflects in the jail population because people are arrested and are booked into the jail for that issue. So this is just another sort of brief overview that when we looked at the data, we found that 40% of pretrial bookings were for those misdemeanors. Over 70% of people booked on non-traffic misdemeanors were released within a day. And over 80% of people booked on traffic misdemeanors were released within a day. And so really what all of this means is that they were right. They were right when they had this initial gut feeling that they were booking in a fair number of people on really low level charges and that those people were getting out very quickly and that was using a lot of resources in their community. So they were right. We had some data to back that up. But the real question now for them is, what do you do about it once you have this information? So I want to tell you a little bit about the policy change that they made in Columbus County, which is that they implemented a structured decision-making process for magistrates. And this was actually a form, and that's another thing that you all had access to, was actually a copy of the form that they created in Columbus County. So feel free to sort of pull that up and look at it as I'm talking about it. But essentially, I'll start with the fact, because I know the word magistrate means very different things in jurisdictions. So in North Carolina, when you're arrested, the first person you go before is the magistrate. And in most cases, that's the person who's determining your initial conditions of release. So magistrates in North Carolina are governed by state laws, they're governed by local policies, but there's a lot of discretion. And certainly in Columbus County, there wasn't a particular process that magistrates had to follow that helped sort of create consistency in these decisions about conditions of release. And so they created this form that created a step-by-step process for deciding conditions of release. And it provides recommendations without removing discretion. So they didn't put in their policy, okay, you have to do whatever the form says. Instead, magistrates are still allowed to deviate from the recommendation. They just have to document it. And that's actually another really important piece, is that this form now is a way to document decision-making for future reference. Because before, a magistrate could make a decision in the middle of the night about why somebody was going to be staying in the jail or not. And the next morning, the judge might look at it and have no idea why that decision was made. So now the form provides this extra layer of clarity and this extra layer of communication between the judges and other staff about why certain decisions were made. I'll go a little bit more into kind of how the form works. So essentially what the form asks magistrates to consider is the offense class. So not just if it's a misdemeanor or a felony, but also the class within misdemeanor or felony. Then there's a long list of case-specific factors that the magistrate is asked to consider. This is a list of factors that the stakeholders came up with in Columbus County. They came up with them specifically to meet the needs of that community. You know, there are things on that list like, does the person live out of state? Because like I said, this is a border county with South Carolina. So they do have a lot of folks that are not from North Carolina in their jail. There are also things like, did this offense involve violence? Does this person have a history of failure to appear? Were they currently on pretrial release? Just a long list of factors that the magistrates consider. Then there's another step that asks them to consider the relevant state law in North Carolina about imposing secured bonds. And then at the end, it comes up with the recommendation based on what you've checked in a bunch of different checkboxes. And the recommendation is going to be one of two things. Either the recommendation is going to be to release the person on an unsecured bond, a written promise, which you might call a release on your own recognizance in your jurisdiction, or a custody release. Basically, these are the three options in North Carolina that do not require somebody to pay up front to be released from the jail, right? So that's going to be the first recommendation. The second recommendation that the form might give is to impose a secured bond. So the person would have to pay to be released from the jail, or they would have to have a bondsman or someone else pay that bond amount. So those are the two recommendations that the form might give. Again, there is also the opportunity to deviate if the recommendation is not something that the magistrate feels comfortable with, but those are basically the two categories. And here's how they really tailored this form and this policy to address the issue that they saw in the jail. What they decided to do is, if the offense class, that very first step, was a class 2 or class 3 misdemeanor, which in North Carolina are the least serious misdemeanors. If it was a class 2 or class 3, the presumption was that that person was going to be released on a written promise, custody release, or unsecured bond. So these options that don't involve money up front. They don't even have to go through these other steps of case-specific factors or the state law about secured bonds. If it's a class 2 or class 3, went straight to the recommendation of doing some kind of non-financial option for the release. And so that really, you see sort of the through line there from A to C. The A was that they had this feeling that they were cycling a lot of people through the jail on low-level offenses. They got the data to back that up in Part B. And then in Part C, they made a policy change that specifically targeted these lower-level offenses and diverting them so that they were not booked into the jail in the first place. And so it's a really clear delineation between what they were able to see in the data and the policy change that they made in their community. And they've actually been using this process in this form for just about a year, and they've been very happy with it. Columbus County is part of a 3-county judicial district, so they have a couple counties around them where they share the same judges and the same DAs and things like that. And within just a couple of months of starting this in Columbus County, they expanded it to the other 2 counties. And one of those counties is even smaller. It's even more rural than Columbus. So they've been really happy with the process, and it's working well for them. But the last sort of question that I'll plug here is this question: is my policy working as expected? So when you put in this upfront, investment in analyzing and talking about your jail data, one of the other really valuable things you can do is go back on the back end, run the data again, and see if the changes that you expected are actually happening. So in Columbus County, the change they would expect is that now they're seeing fewer Class 2s and Class 3s being booked into the jail, those Class 2 and Class 3 misdemeanors. We haven't gone back yet in Columbus County and run that analysis, but it's certainly something that I would encourage jurisdictions that do this type of work to go ahead and do on the back end. If you've already done it the first time on the front end, it's going to be way easier to run that analysis again. And it's essentially always good to check and to see if that policy change you made really addressed that issue that you were concerned about, or maybe it didn't. Maybe you're not seeing the change that you expected, and then it might be time to revisit. But that is a little bit about Columbus County, about their jail data analysis, about what they did. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Hannah, thank you. So at the moment, we don't have any questions, but while we wait to see if anyone would like to enter any, I have a question for you. What recommendations do you have for someone who's listening today who would like to approach a university? Now, you mentioned around the departments and the likely skills you're looking for, but how do you cold call a university?
Yeah, I would say you might have varied luck in terms of who might respond to kind of a cold outreach and who might not. So you might want to try more than one place, honestly, if you don't get somebody who's responsive right away. But I do think one of the most valuable things is being able to provide a little information about what you want, as opposed to just saying like, hey, I work for this jurisdiction. We're interested in a jail data analysis. Being a little bit more specific about even things like, we're looking to do an analysis that relates to our pretrial jail population. We're interested to look over time and learn about demographics or learn about charges. Those kind of details will help somebody think about, okay, do we have the right skills to do this? Is this something that we'd be interested to do? So I do think that, those kind of details, which is why sitting down probably first with other stakeholders in your jurisdiction and talking about what your primary areas of interest might be, it might be worth doing that before you even go down the road of trying to outreach to somebody else.
Thank you. We still don't have any questions, so I'm going to lean towards that your presentation was so comprehensive that there was no need to follow up at the moment. We probably will have time again at the end to come back to you if that's what we should do. So I'm going to transition from Hannah to Hillary, and where Hannah brought a case study and experience in a community that had no pretrial services agency, but still wanted to look at their pretrial data. Hillary is going to share with us her community's experience as the director of the Pretrial Services Agency. So Hillary, I invite you to unmute, turn your camera on, and share your story.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll start by briefly introducing myself. My name is Hillary Bartoin, and I'm the Cass County Court and Pretrial Services Director. That's kind of a unique title and position that we have here, which means not only do I facilitate and oversee the pretrial release program, but I also am court services and the chair of our JRAC, or our Justice Reinvestment Advisory Council. For some of you, that may be your court coordinating council. So as Hannah brought together the importance and highlighted the importance of having a data-driven team and having these discussions and answering those questions, that's a big part of my job, is bringing our stakeholders together, helping us analyze the data and continue to review it and answer the questions that are important to us as a rural community. To give you a little bit of a background, if I had to sum us up in 2 words as Cass County, it would be that we're data-driven and we're client-centered. And that's really the main focus and mission and vision of what pretrial services has evolved to be here in Cass County. But it didn't always start out that way. We're a small rural community of about 38,000 people in northern Indiana. And we started out as a county that was struggling with a jail overcrowding program. And that's really why pretrial services first was implemented here, was how do we solve our jail overcrowding program and prevent us from investing resources and burdening other jails, because we were so overcrowded that we were housing 20 to 30% of our population and other surrounding communities. And that was not only incurring us a cost in daily per diem, but in transportation. Hearings were being delayed. It was a big need for us. At that same time, it was kind of the perfect chemistry with what was going on with our legislators. So we had the Supreme Court initiative in Indiana with Criminal Rule 26. We are an evidence-based decision-making state with the National Institute of Corrections. And with that came technical assistance with pretrial services. So we decided to take a chance and implement that and see if that would be a way to leverage our rural resources and solve the problem or question that we had at hand. Our pretrial services program was started in 2018, and at first it was very small with a limited target population of who we could touch or release under our supervision. Fast forward through 2022, or 2022, we were the first certified pretrial agents, the 11th county to receive certification from the Indiana Office of Court Services. What that means is that we kind of passed the test with Indiana of implementing the essential elements that are outlined by Nick. Another timeline or progression that you'll see, and I'll teach you how we did that using the jail data that Hannah talked about, is we separated out from adult probation. So we originally so small that we were part of adult probation and became the second independent pretrial agency in 2021. And how we did that is we leveraged our data, especially our J data and our outcome data, to quantify our fiscal impact and our positive outcomes to gain local funding and support. Just last year, we continued to show sustained growth, as I'll show you, and we expanded to 3 full-time case management employees, including myself. We have a dedicated public defender on staff, as well as the supportive services and therapeutic staff that works with us in partnership with our behavioral health provider. And that's really important to us as we pride being client-centric and employing that intentional supervision model. To kind of give you a look at our positive outcomes and how we present that data and give you a taste of what I will talk about today, we have many metrics that we do as part of our state initiative. We have 19 metrics that those in Indiana have to measure and look at for pretrial. But here you'll see that the green columns are those that are on active pretrial supervision and are released under our care. And you'll see how much more of an impact and success that we're able to make with our intentional model compared to that darker navy blue, which is those who are released on financial conditions alone. So in Indiana, we still do have cash bail, but you'll see there's an average of a 20% more success rate with this data-driven client-centric approach that we have in Cass County. Did we solve our problem with the jail, what we originally set out to do? So before pretrial services, we did what Hannah first described, is we really did a deep dive baseline analysis of our local jail and went in there and defined different sectors from looking at community supervision violators to failures to appear to those who were truly held with pretrial and economic barriers were their sole means of not being able to be released. And what we found is back in 2018, 70% of our jail population was pre-adjudication. And we had an average population that was 234, which was about 20% over capacity for our small rural jail. If you fast forward that and compare that to April 2024, the pre-adjudication population is less than 10%. And our average population is 125. And we actually house about 20% of our total jail population. We now help out other neighboring counties and house from them or DOC. We have a therapeutic pod in our jail, and that allows us to retain people longer so they can participate in services while they're incarcerated. But you'll see that's an 80% reduction in our pretrial local jail population, which I think is huge for a rural county. That's certainly not the norm and what we see, but it shows the value in us looking at our data and working together as a highly functioning team. As Chris had mentioned earlier, that is our greatest strength, and we've leveraged that as we move forward. And you may ask me, but Hillary, how did you achieve that success in such a short period of time? And it is because of the data. So what I want to talk about is how I've illustrated my impact with the data. I've engaged my stakeholders, and I've secured that local support using my data. So what I've done is I prioritize education and using that data to encourage engagement. So I engage regularly with my stakeholders. I have a highly functioning team, and I think if I could give you one piece of advice is to recognize that rural is really unique and different, and that our strength is that we really have a more intimate team. We're small town communities. Everybody knows each other, and that's not a barrier, that's a strength. We all know who we are. It's easier for us to come to the table, to be more vulnerable, and to express our concerns when we answer these questions about expanding our target population. How do we address the needs of this sector in the jail? How do we promote public safety and ensure that so we can maybe expand into a different area when we never thought about before? And to really foster those education opportunities and develop an appetite for data with my stakeholders. And I think that's one of the things we really need to highlight here is you have to teach your stakeholders how to engage in data and what it means to them personally, and help them feel comfortable with that and asking questions. So I wanted to develop a means where I could communicate consistent data that was relative to each sector of my stakeholder group, which includes my judges, my prosecutors, my public defenders, law enforcement, my jail staff, and I wanted it to be digestible to them and also interactive. And what you'll see here, I'll have them drop it in the chat, and you're welcome to click on my website. It's actually here on the right is an animated dashboard. And we update this every month. It's aggregate top level data. But my stakeholders, including my public community, I'm very transparent with my data. They can go in and just see our top 6 key metrics. Most of you are familiar with the appearance and safety rate at any time to see what they're doing. So the data is accessible to them at any time. We also, I'll show you on this next slide coming up, developed a newsletter that we send out to our stakeholders every month. So it's a consistent means of providing them with the information so that they can hear from us on a regular basis. They can ask us questions, they get used to who they are, they know our faces. So we really don't have desk jobs. We're out there not only in the community with our clients, but also with our stakeholders and our funders. And what that's done is it develop an appetite for data and a total cultural shift that focuses on evidence-based and data-driven decision-making, not just in the decisions and the recommendations that I make in court, but also in our policy decisions. And that's spread not only from pretrial to the post-conviction side. So now if we're wanting to talk about expanding the pretrial population or what resources are relevant that I need to bring in to overcome maybe, let's say, it's housing barriers or behavioral health, we're going to look at the data and see what that means. And we've also seen that happen with community supervision on the post-conviction side. They now are posting performance metrics as well. So we've seen that kind of bleed over and make a more system-wide impact. And that's one of the things that we're most proud about. Is if you go to our website and you dig a little deeper, you'll see these metrics for community corrections and probation as well, because we've developed stakeholders who want that data. They're hungry for it. They want to hear from us, and they want to engage with us. That's further illustrated with this next slide. And I want to emphasize this is a progression. This document has evolved over the years, and you can actually go on the website and dig back and see all the way back to 2020 to where we are now, how our program is doing and the different trends and how we've expanded the data points. And I wanted to have that trend analysis and that ability to do that Hannah illustrated, but I also want to tell our story and make it engaging. So we have these newsletters that we produce each month for our stakeholders. We also orally report on it with our county council and commissioners who are our local funders. And we do this for our jail as well. But you'll see that we give them a nice narrative of maybe program advancements, trainings we've attended, new grants we brought in. But then we also talk about our outcomes. You know, how is our appearance rate? What is our safety rate? How does that relate to what we're doing in the jail? What percentage of our clients are voluntary participating in the supportive services and seeking the benefit of our intentional model? And by creating these tools and developing this mechanism, we've been able to engage our stakeholders. And that's allowed us to see the sustained growth, is because they see the evidence and the proof of what they're doing. And in return, they're wanting to invest in us because they see the impact on our community. And that's illustrated too in our program utilization. So you'll see back in 2019, right before COVID hit, you'll see that our total population served was 92 clients per year. I will note this is all active supervision. We really don't want to over supervise people, realizing that cash bond is a thing in Indiana. So those with cash bail normally are not part of us and what we do. But you'll see that our growth has continued. So last year we were at 299, and I'm going to update 2024 from the time these slides were prepared, but we're actually at 90% of the total population we had in 2023, because we have prosecutors and public defenders advocating for people to be put on pretrial release in a rural community. We have an average release rate of 89%, and we have judges really maximizing release in the program. And what that's done is that's kind of charged our program up, allowed us to really control our jail population to the point where we could bring in some of the needed things, such as a therapeutic pod. We can help out our other counties and generate some extra revenue. So the data has allowed us to do that because of the confidence we've built. Not only have we seen that in the support that we've seen with our program utilization, but we've seen that in the funding that we get locally. So if you think about rural communities, most of us are really strapped for resources. And one of our biggest strengths is that we're innovative. So rural communities are forced by nature, due to the limited nature of what we have, to be innovative and maximize our resources, be creative with what we do. But despite all that, we've been able to, as you see here on the chart on the right, you've seen that over 60% of our funding is local support. And we are kind of unique in Indiana. I hope to see this spread throughout the state, that we only are 40% grant funded. Both of my staff and all our fringe and operational budget come from local county support. And we do that in that we've been able to quantify our fiscal impact to the county. Just in the pretrial release program, this doesn't count in all the fiscal benefits that we bring in through the grants or through the evidence-based decision-making, those intangible benefits to our clients. But just in jail bed stays alone for 2023, it's estimated that we saved the county over $1.5 million. If we just look at jail bed stays for 2023, that was over 107 years in jail bed stays that were diverted. Think about the impact to those clients in the community who are able to secure employment, stay home with their families, and their social supports, seek treatment. And that's all with that driver. If I could tell you one data point that is your key to securing local support or quantifying your fiscal impact, is to look at your days supervised. So for Cass County in 2023, we had over 30,000 days supervised. And we saw a 59% increase in the days supervised in 2023. For 2024, we're projecting another 50% intake, which is a little mind-boggling for us. But what we do is we compare our operating budget to our cost savings, and that gives us a projected cost savings rate. So I'm able to tell my county council and commissioners that for this much you invest in me, I save you 88%. And the cost savings analysis or rate is just the total percent remaining after you subtract your annual operating costs. But by illustrating it in a way that's the data in a way that makes sense to my fiscal bodies in my local county, I was able to gain that support. And that's actually grown over the years because this is a journey. Pretrial is a journey. It takes a lot of endurance, engagement. Any of you who are on the call from a rural jurisdiction, you have to have a lot of endurance and perseverance as you work with your stakeholders to expand your target populations, to gain engagement, support in what you do, and confidence from law enforcement. And we've seen that with the local support that we've been able to generate over the years. So you'll see back in 2019, this was 2019, we had fiscal grant cycles back then. We were 100% grant funded for our first 1.5 years. And we started to get a local support in 2020. But you'll see starting in 2021, when they really decided to make that big push and investment and follow best practices and make us an independent agency, that we've really seen a steady increase in the amount of money that they support and pour into us on a local level. So you'll see that lime greenish color there is the local funding support that we received, and you'll see our grant funding support has went down. And we intentionally want to keep that grant funding going down and more local support, because we want that grant funding to be reserved for those newer counties that are starting out and need that technical assistance and that support. So that is kind of our goal of what we hope to do with that. The next thing I want to talk about is our intentional pretrial supervision, because yes, we made an impact on our jail population, but we've also developed a model and we've validated it using our data that's not only ensured community safety by keeping our safety rate stable, but has also helped our clients succeed beyond pretrial. So we've seen lasting outcomes in what we do. So we started to see a trend and kind of a little stagnation in our performance metrics. And when I say that, I mean our success and our safety rates, because we recognize that just focusing on compliance-based only metrics and failing to address clients' needs or connecting them with resources within the framework of best practices, there's no court-ordered supervision in Cass County. It was stagnating our growth, and we really wanted to ensure that as we grew, that our performance metrics remain stable. And my judge actually reached out to me. She's a former prosecutor, and she says, you know, historically defendants, they have to wait to conviction to be connected to services, and we're kind of ignoring the needs principle, and people are in that crisis point. Is there a way within pretrial best practices to not court-ordered treatment, but to bring services in-house and to have some referral sources so we can help clients be more successful on pretrial supervision? So we kind of had the goal to develop a model and identify the 3 main target areas that we wanted to target these interventions into and to partner with local providers in our community. And we identified that employment, residential stability, substance use, and behavioral health were the main needs of our client. And we identified that by looking at our data but also by generating feedback from our clients. So I encourage you not just to look at quantitative data, but qualitative data as well. So we implemented a appointment protocol that was really unique to us, that really made sure that we were focusing our supervision meetings in a mindset that was success oriented, and that was truly different than post-conviction here in Cass County, and that we also incorporated voluntary support services with us. So we started that initiative and kind of wanted to monitor it and see how that was going. And some of the things you can click around on our website and see that we decided to bring in as we recognize that technology was one of the best ways to communicate with our clients, especially seeing a spike in our 18 to 25-year-old population. So we really tried to leverage an existing resource we had with our website. So we flushed out some areas in our website that weren't just for our stakeholders, but that were also for our clients. So you'll see here pictured, we have a resources page, and in there, this is also an app that they can pull up on their phone. They can pay court costs and restitution. They can look up when their hearing is. They can pay BMV fees. They can look up local community behavioral health providers, food pantries, housing resources, and things like that. They can also have access to an online job portal where we have partnered with employers in our local county where they have direct links to job portals and applications. We provide application assistance. So that is a way that we kind of overcame those barriers, but utilized an existing resource that we had. We are continually trying to leverage our website and expand it and expand our resource inventory. So this was something that really just took us time. It was not a cost investment for us. We already had our website. We just took our resources and we took it from a static pamphlet and made it in a way that our clients could engage in it, that was meaningful to them and that they could take with them and have anywhere. Other interventions or areas that we decided to target or implement into our program included, again, like I said, residential stability. And I really wanted to provide this as a resource for you. So if you're looking at who can I partner with in my community, think about your housing authorities, rent and financial assistance programs, local shelters. Rural communities often have county and city trustees that they have delegated funding that they can help people with. We also wanted to address education and employment. So we partnered with our staffing agencies. We have resume building classes that we can refer people to, as well as a toolkit online. We brought in an online HSE program that we not only host for our clients in pretrial, but we are able to expand for those who do remain incarcerated. For court appearance, that's a big risk factor for pretrial. There's SafeLink for phones. There are other programs in the community that will provide people with free phones. We partnered with our local transit provider to provide free passes for our clients. And then we also made sure that we had connections for an online driver safety program. Substance use is a big barrier in our county and a big need that we need to address with our clients. So we partnered with our local behavioral health provider, and we have therapists who are in-house that clients can come see 1 to 2 days a week. It's free at no cost to them. We don't believe in disparate treatment. So we've been able to allocate some resources where I pay that fee and it's offered to all my clients equally if they choose to. It's not court ordered. If there are other services we need, or if we want them to be in services that are a little bit more sustainable outside of the scope of our program, we have individual counselors that we can refer to, peer support and recovery navigation services. And then we also wanted to teach our clients skills or have them be able to set goals if they want to. So we also have a curriculum library with change company journals. Maybe someone wants to do a financial resource journal and learn how to better manage their money. or do an employment journal to kind of overcome that barrier and to learn some more skills, we can provide that for them. So it took us probably about 3 years to fully flesh out this inventory. So I want to be transparent with you. This did not happen overnight, and we did this as a team. So our stakeholder team, we meet at least every quarter, but as part of our JRAC, we most often meet almost every month of the year. And we were constantly getting feedback from our prosecutors and our public defenders. What about this need? Can you bring something in to help those who are victims of domestic violence or who need assistance with childcare? So we really did this as a team exercise to, again, leverage that local sense of community. We brought in outside providers and representatives from our schools, behavioral health, our local drug-free initiatives to really bring everybody at the table to maximize the resources that we had in our community. In the end, that also strengthened our team. And we saw that that really produced a lot of results for us, and we were really excited to see that. Things become more data driven. What we saw is that clients really do have a motivation to engage in support services, and it is important for them, and it's a need that they need.
Not abnormal for a rural community to have some issues with the internet. So we'll give Hillary just a moment. She is going to be able to rejoin us. And while we're waiting for her, we can open the Q&A again. I know the questions we have there now are for Hillary, so we hope that she will reconnect. Any other questions though that Hannah or I can answer while we're waiting? Couple of items we would share with you in follow-up, and to the couple of people we have in our Q&A, I will make sure that we do some one-to-one connection between Hillary and the questions that you have so that you have some follow-up to the questions you asked here. But just in closing, today's recording and the PowerPoint slides, the resources that have been referenced, all of those will be sent to you in email, typically within 24 hours of when we complete the session here today. In addition, you're going to be able to find this on YouTube, the BJA's YouTube channel. So that link there may be of interest to you. And before we close out today, there's going to be a little pop-up asking you to take 10 seconds and give us just a little bit of feedback on today's particular webinar, if in general, these kind of sessions are helpful to you. All right, so I have reviewed the questions that are in our chats or in our Q&A, and I think they were more specifically for Hillary. And like I said, we will do some direct follow-up so that you are not left hanging. I want to publicly thank Hillary and Hannah for taking time for sharing their experiences with you. I think they all
Hillary
brought
is back, Chris.
Oh, hi, Hillary. Welcome back.
I apologize, everyone. We have a brief internet outage in Indiana.
Well, we kind of acknowledge that this is not abnormal in rural communities that our internets can be unstable. So you were finishing early results
Yes.
when we lost you.
I apologize, everyone. That was totally unpreventable. So, what we found is that clients really want to engage in supportive services if you're willing to offer it to them, and you don't have to court order it. You just have to make it easily accessible and break those barriers, and you can have a huge impact. So in the first year that we really fleshed out this model and tried to use it, we saw a 63% voluntary program engagement rate. And I think that's a really good thing for you guys to measure is how many of your clients are motivated and have a need for this type of service for you to implement. And with my staff, we really wanted to develop a mindset where we have empathy and where we're really balancing accountability with opportunity and coming alongside our clients to support success. And we saw a growth in our staff development where we had almost a 40% increase in our supportive services referrals. And this resulted in a 25% reduction in technical violations, whether it's barriers to reporting or to making court appearances. And we found that those who participate in support services only had a 2.5% revocation rate. And that was a 22% decrease from calendar year 2022. And that was for the year 2023. So we were really excited about that. If you fast forward to last year, looking at 2023's data, you'll see that we had a 66% percentage of people engaging in supportive services voluntarily. They get to self-identify what they choose. And we really feel that that's important. But most importantly, digging down and looking at the data, those who do engage in that, 90% of them are successful and do very well, which we're really excited about. I wanted to dig a little bit deeper, being a data nerd myself, and I think my controls were taken away to move the slides. So if Chris or Hannah can move the slide to the one about engagement in supportive services versus non-engagement, you'll see here that we were able, by keeping that baseline data that Hannah mentioned, if you really want to go back and do a comparison before you implement any policy and see how you've done, we were able to see the success across those 5 key metrics versus those who engaged in supportive services versus those who didn't. And it was an average 25% difference. So we were really excited to see the impact and the value of what we were doing. So that was really important to us as we were moving forward and trying to do what we're doing. So as you can see, developing that appetite for data, figuring out how to communicate that to my stakeholders has allowed me to really evolve my program over the years and really leverage the unique strengths and opportunities that we have in rural communities that maybe an urban community doesn't. With that, and thank you all for being so patient with my technical issue, Chris might have some questions for me in the chat.
I do. So a couple of people are really interested in the data that you've been showing and want to know, like, do you have a template that you're using? Is it something that you can share?
With our data, I will, as a caveat, mention Indiana has invested a lot into pretrial data, and we've developed a statewide pretrial data system. A lot of what I've shown you, though, in regards to visualizations and things like that are templates that I've created. Full disclosure, I have nothing special. I've just used the Free Pages app on my iPad to do that. If someone, I'm sure that Chris has my email that we can drop in the chat, would like a template, I have a couple templates that are a little bit simplified that I'd be willing to share with anyone. But for me, the biggest thing I would recommend to you is to not think you have to have a fancy software or invest a lot of money to leverage what programs you already have.
Thank you. Our next question is, do the judges in your county believe in putting defendants on probation?
Yes, we have a very large probation population. If you're looking at outcome data, what happens at the disposition of people's cases, we do track that. So we see the majority of our people who are adjudicated by either a guilty plea or a guilty conviction of their offense, about 90% go to probation and less than 2% get an incarcerated term. Some go to community corrections, and we do have a good chunk. I believe the last review showed over 30% have their case dismissed or they go pretrial diversion.
Okay. Our next question has two parts. Is your office meeting with individuals prior to them seeing the judicial officers who is setting the bond? And if so, is your office then making recommendations to that officer if the person would be a good candidate for pretrial?
So yes, we do pretrial evaluations Monday through Friday. I'm actually the primary assessor. So with a rural community, you wear many hats. So I am a boots on the ground person. I'm not just an administrator. We go in every day. I start pre-screening around 4:30, start evaluations at 5:30. And prepare a report. In Indiana, we use the IRAS or the ORAS and give it to my judicial officer. We make a recommendation if this person would be an appropriate candidate. They can refuse to participate because it is a cash bond system primarily. And then we also try to make an objective recommendation if a special condition is needed, but that's really something the judicial officer has to order. I can share that template if someone would want us to do that.
Thank you. Hilly, our next question, you mentioned how important the relationship component is for bringing about systematic change within the local system. Has that served as the foundation from which you've been able to secure more and more local support, both financially and non-financial, for your program?
Absolutely. Relationships are key, and that's the biggest thing that I don't think us as rural communities recognize, is that our greatest asset is that we really have leveraged that small town support, that more intimate stakeholder group. You don't have to drive 40 minutes to talk to your judicial officers or your chief police. Oftentimes you're in the same building. So make yourself present and known. So I really fostered that relationship. I held trainings with my law enforcement officers. They all know who I am. I learned what the impact of what I do has on other players in the system. So one of the very first things I did was observe the booking process. I actually booked someone in the jail. I wanted to see what me going in there, how that was going to disrupt their process. That not only was an education to me, but it helped those other people in the system feel like I heard them, and I took the time to understand what their process is, and that fostered a better relationship with us.
Thank you. We have two more questions. Does anyone else offer to provide referrals for services, even when folks aren't reporting to your office?
In the pretrial stage, attorneys and things like that can provide referrals, but due to a funding cut, our public defender's office does not have that position anymore. They used to have an inpatient treatment navigator. When that position was lost, we didn't get any extra funding, but we were so passionate about that we took that under our umbrella. So there are lots of community resources. We've just leveraged those relationships. And we brought them all in-house, because you think about it, people have limited resources. We don't want it to be onerous that they have to go here and there, maybe with limited gas. So we try to bring everything in-house, make it to where they can report to one place and do that.
Wonderful. One last question. It was noted just how much success you've had since 2018. And the person asked, what did pretrial look like in 2018? So probably prior to you being involved.
There was no pretrial release. There was just a cash bond system, a very overburdened jail So there was none. And what happened is there was a judicial conference, they're, promoting these grants and this opportunity. And there was the initiative with the state, and it was kind of that perfect climate to take a chance and try something new. So we kind of hit a crisis point in our county. The state had this technical assistance available. So the judge gave me a call up one day when I still worked in the clerk's office and said, hey, do you want to try to solve this problem? I'll give you 2 months to do it. The story is I bargained for a little bit longer than that, but that's just kind of how we were born. We had that question that Hannah talked about, and we decided to take a chance on a solution to see if it would work. And it's just kind of slowly grown from there.
Thank you. So Hillary and Hannah, I would like to give each of you a minute to kind of close out with any final thoughts. And Hillary, since you are already on my camera, I'm going to start with you. Any final thoughts for our audience?
I would just say, really don't just look and think of the rural community as having barriers. Look at what your strengths are and really leverage and utilize those. And then as someone brought up with the questions, relationships and mindset and working together, that's your biggest asset. So foster that, cherish it, and nourish that, because that's where rural can really shine. And that's how you can be successful.
I feel like I can't say anything that sort of doesn't just echo what Hillary just said, but definitely for us, when we do these types of projects, what we're really trying to do is just facilitate essentially the types of, convenings that Hillary's talking about, where we always want to bring together not just, the director of pretrial services, but also judges, defenders, law enforcement. On this project in Columbus County, we had a representative from the local mental health authority that was there as well. So, when you come together, you don't really know necessarily what you're going to find, but folks are on the same page more often than you might think in our experience. In all types of jurisdictions, people have common goals. It's just a matter of getting together and finding out what they are.
Thank you. Thank you both to Hillary and Hannah for taking time again to share their case study from each of their communities or the communities they were working with in Hannah's situation. We do promise to gather up the resources they've either shared in chat or they talked about sharing with you, and that will be in the follow-up email to you. Intac had already started our closing survey, so I'm not sure if they can start it again or if it's already up. If it is, we do ask that you just take a moment and give us that feedback. It's helpful. This is the first of a series of webinars that we will do around pretrial that is hosted by BJA. You, everyone who has joined us today, our audience, thank you so much. Hopefully, again, you felt heard, you feel seen in a rural community. That was part of our intentions today. We appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone.